Hi, and welcome to the Boat Princess podcast. My name is Nicky Vaux, and I'm your host. I am a boat owner, a marinas owner, an international conference presenter, and a huge advocate for boating. I'm sharing the stories from every nook of the boating industry with the intention of encouraging more women to join me and for more women to get behind the helm too. I want to share the experiences and opportunities of boating, of the boating industry, and I want you to join me as I bring the conversations and answer all the questions you've had. Boating is not just for the glamorous and rich and famous. It's full of beautiful and interesting people making the most of our natural environment and getting out there enjoying the waterways. So let's let off the lines, take over the helm, and escape to the world of boating. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Boat Princess podcast. I am here with a very good friend today who I know through Icomia, but it's a gentleman that has probably some incredible stories that you will enjoy of his very long career in the boating industry. So, Peter Methven, OBE, welcome to the Boat Princess podcast.
Thank you, Boat Princess.
How are you, my darling?
We're doing all right, thank you.
Good. We're here at the Royal Thames Club to do this interview, and Peter, of course, is a member here. Tell me, Peter, how did your whole boating life start? When was that first moment for you for boating?
Well, from very young, I was interested in sailing, coming from a family that had no interest whatsoever in anything to do with floating on water. I was sent to a nautical college Pangbourne, because my parents thought the discipline would do me well. But that's where I really started to sail properly, match racing, seriously, 7 days a week, which was, I thought, fantastic. For me, sport, including sailing, was far more important than academic affairs. So towards the end of my time, I was severely injured in a rugby injury. And as a career, I was supposed to be trying to get into the Royal Navy, but they advised me that that wasn't going to happen because my medical record was so bad.
Okay.
Think again. So the other option from there was go to the Merchant Navy, which I didn't fancy. No disrespect to the Merchant Navy, but that wasn't for me. So I then decided, because I was interested in boats, I would go into the marine industry. And everyone said, that's not a career. You can't possibly do that.
Did they?
Yep. So I tried to work it out and decided that I wanted to go to Southampton and do a yacht and boatyard management course. Well, that's where it all went wrong. So I went there and said, here I am, I'm ready. And they said, no, you're not. You need to go away and get some more experience in the industry, and you need to spend time on your tools. So off I went. And to be honest, I have to say I was guided by Peter Nicholson of Camper & Nicholson. I worked on my tools and became a qualified boat builder. And my experiences were fairly varied. It included delivering a small Van Lent vessel down the French Canal to the Mediterranean, which I put down as industrial experience, which was just awesome fun, as you can well imagine. The owner of the boat was terrific. His wife was terrific. And every so often we would stop and he'd fly back to the UK to check on his racing horses. Great fun, great experience. Saw my way through France. The boat was fractionally large for the canals, so it had its issues at times, but we scraped through. The only time we had a crash was when the owner decided he would drive and hit a barge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The barge was fine. Our paintwork was not. So that took us 3 days beside the canal fixing it all because we couldn't go on like that. And the whole reason the boat was going down to the Mediterranean is because the chap was emigrating to Ibiza to avoid tax in the UK.
Oh, ouch. Yeah.
So that was one of my industrial experiences. But otherwise, I worked for Universal Shipyards as I would say, a general runaround for the manager and the yard foreman. And the good thing about Universal Shipyards in those days, it was a multi-trade yard. So I had experience on fiberglass, teak, aluminium, and steel to a certain extent. And they were very happy times for me.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I must have been 20. Then I went to work for Albin Marine of Sweden. And Albin Marine are no longer, but in those days they were famous for the Viga and Viggen and Singoalla boats. They were a big, in those days, production boat builder.
Right.
And they would compete with people like Westerly and McWester and so on and so forth. And today still, there are some Viga boats running around. So that was nice to work in Sweden where the men had a certain amount of tasks they had to achieve each day. And once they'd done it, they could sit down and play cards. Nothing like doing a bit of extra. And that was fine. Then I came back to the UK and worked for Albin Marine in the UK, who are the importer and distributor. And I was their after-sales service person. And that was, frankly, great fun. I'm not sure we all took it as seriously as we should. The intention was just to have good fun.
Yeah.
I had one, unfortunately, embarrassing disaster whilst at Albin Marine. I was sent from the handball to Cowes to go and change a gearbox on a motorboat. That in itself is not a problem, small gearbox, etc., etc. So I went down to the moorings, and the nearest and easiest boat was the biggest in those days sailing yacht of the Albin Marine range. And I thought, well, I'll just take that. It's got fuel in it. I'll go. So I went down the handball, crossing the Solent. I decided, I think I'll have a cup of coffee. So I went below to make a cup of coffee. Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention to where we were going, and the next thing I felt was a bump.
Oh.
Whereupon we were aground on the bramble bank.
Oh, no.
The boat was right on its side. Everybody I knew passed and was able to comment about it in the pub. And I got to Cowes eventually. Fortunately, you get 2 high tides a day in the Solent. And the owner of the boat, who I was going to change the gearbox for, said, your boss wants to know where you've been. He'd like to hear from you now. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah. Now, remember, this was before mobile phones. So I did phone in and he said, where have you been? I said, well, I've had a picnic on the Bramble Bank. Right. I'll deal with you when you get back. Get on and fix that customer's boat. So, yeah. Fortunately.
Well, we always say you haven't been boating if you haven't gone aground, don't we?
No, but fortunately the boss was reasonable and he was okay.
Oh, good.
And we had to go out sailing in his wretched catamaran that evening, where we had a habit of drinking sherry from teacups. Don't know why, but always forgiven about the Bramble Bank.
Oh, good. Thank goodness for that.
And I've actually been a firm friend of him all his life. So
there you go.
That's good.
Your boating career goes right back to when Ibiza was even before Ibiza as it is now, as Party Central, of course. But in your day, there were still donkeys being used to pull boats out, weren't there?
Correct.
Yeah.
They used to put a straw blind over the head and ears and eyes of the donkey, and it would work the capstan to haul boats up. And it took ages to get them up. And after a while, they'd change the donkey for a fresher donkey. And eventually you were hauled up. But it was all very slow, very archaic.
Yeah.
The launching process was somewhat different. They just knocked the pin out and the cradle rumbled down into the water with a splash and off you went.
Yeah. And the water was even delivered by donkeys to the boats and all that sort of thing,
I remember in San Antonio, you had to go and order water for the boat. There was no hose pipe or anything. And a donkey and cart came along with a tank on it and it would deliver water to the boat.
Gracious me. So That lovely accent you have, Peter, is terribly English. But in actual fact, you weren't born in England, were you?
I'm actually Scottish. Yeah. But I think I was educated mostly
in England.
In England.
Yeah. You built a boat at home in the loft.
Oh, I did a few of those. The last one before the practice was banned. And the first one was when I was injured. I had a leg in plaster from rugby and I was bored. So I decided to build a little boat. But then it progressed from there. And the last two sailing skiffs. And the last one was bigger than all the previous ones. And unfortunately, it wouldn't fit to get out of the loft. And on reflection, it wasn't going to get any further, even it did get down the loft. So my mother had to arrange for scaffolding, and the big window in the loft was taken out, and people were employed to get this boat out. Not a very good start to a boat building career. But I thought it was great.
Yeah. So let's get back to the story about you've done that changing of the gearbox.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's you're working for
Bobbin Marine.
And what happened after working for them?
It's so long ago, I'm having trouble remembering. But I then went to work in Scotland because the then Scottish dealer of Bobbin Marine persuaded me this was a good career opportunity. And it was all great fun. The bad thing up there was I fell off a yacht mast and ended in hospital.
Oh.
Which was rather painful.
Yeah.
But the real good news is that's where I met my wife.
Oh, okay. How did you meet her? The lovely Lilias.
On a blind date.
Oh, how lovely. We used to do those, didn't we? Blind dates.
Yeah.
That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't want to hear that story.
Well, she's still around. How many years have you been married now?
50.
Oh, look at that. That's fantastic.
I then went and worked for the distributor importer of Correct Craft Ski Nautique boats.
Oh.
And that lasted probably 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And then I decided I didn't want to work for that company anymore. So I spoke with Correct Craft. I went to the States and I became their European manager. And I did that for some 40 years, looking after their interests all over Europe, from finding distributors to dealing with warranty to dealing with shipping and political stuff. And they asked my opinion. I said, well, very big-headed of me. I said, I don't think you're doing the best you could in Europe. So they said, well, what are you saying? So I just said, I gave them my opinion. And the boss then turned around and said, well, you better do it.
Wow. Okay. And so that meant lots of travel for you in Europe, presumably?
I went somewhere every week.
Ah, gosh.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I covered, in those days, 18 boat shows. Lots of travel.
Yeah.
Nice people. Great fun, mostly.
And just to explain to our listeners, what sort of boats were they?
These are 20-foot water ski boats, specialized water ski boats with a V8 petrol engine inside. Not particularly PC these days, but water skiing was extremely strong in those days. And then latterly, to my time, wakeboarding came along, and now it's wake surfing. And the boats have got bigger, with more power, with more ballast tanks and things like that. Mm. So when I started, a tournament ski boat was somewhere in the region of £4,000 retail.
Wow.
Now they're over £100,000 sterling.
Well, I know in Australia, some of them are sort of 350,000, that sort of level.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. For a really good ski boat. So interesting that it's changed. That's almost the same level of housing, isn't it? That's incredible, the difference between the £4,000 and the...
I think, yes, it's huge, but I think it's surprising how people have continued to accept it and continue to do this sport. You are burning fossil fuel. Yes, I know some people have LPG, but
Yeah.
It's and I remember once there was a question of, we had a tryout for the Olympics in Seville. And so we had to truck boats and skiers and jump ramps and goodness knows what down there for a trial. And we very nearly got it in the Olympics, but actually it was finally decided it's not very much in the Olympic spirit with a V8 engine dragging somebody over the water.
Fair enough. But yeah, it would have been fun to watch, though. Great sport to watch.
Yeah.
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 What a shame it didn't happen in a way. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, I'd been involved with a company called Shakespeare Marine, and we were building ski racing boats.
Okay.
And the Australians are very big with that, very powerful engines and stuff.
Yeah.
But 50 miles round a course, as fast as you can possibly go.
50 miles?
Yes. Requires a lot of guts and a lot of skill.
Yeah, not wrong. And a lot of fuel.
Yes. Not wonderful in the current climate.
No.
But,
okay, so you're looking after Correct Craft all over Europe.
mm-hmm.
You're effectively their distributor, working with them, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Got that?
Mm-hmm.
How did you cope with, I mean, obviously that's a lot of European countries you're dealing with, the language barriers and all those sorts of things. How did you overcome all of that?
We speak English.
Yeah.
End of story.
So you were just terribly British about it and just spoke louder.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, remember, was before the EU got a grip of things. So all the manuals and everything were in English. We didn't have to do multi-language stuff.
Yeah.
So I think also the dealers had to have an aspiration to work with an American company and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can speak a little bit here and there, but it's fairly messy.
Yeah. So you did that for how long?
Nearly 40 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the boats changed dramatically over that period of time, obviously.
They evolved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did for you the business change a great deal? Obviously, EU coming in would have changed it a lot and all those sorts of things, but was it really different or was it?
I think, to answer you, it's very different now. So when the internet came along, things changed hugely because people could, at the click of a button, decide what color or shape of boat they wanted. So instead of sitting down with the dealers and talking them through scheduled orders, so they had a range of boats for delivery through the course of the year, all of a sudden, towards the end of my time, it became such the customer would say, I want a pink boat with yellow spots. And that's what was built. So instead of shipping 50 boats at a time, you're now shipping one at a time or two at a time. So the deal with the shipping companies goes away from you.
Mm. And the price to the customer goes up quite dramatically, I would have thought.
And it has gone up. It's rocketed up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think so that's happened to you? You've been 40 years in this business. You've seen incredible change. What happened at that point? What did you say then? Okay, this is not for me anymore, or what happened then?
We had a bit of a parting of the ways because whilst I was here in Europe doing my own thing, new management came in at Correct Craft and decided they want somebody local in Orlando, Florida. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mm. Fair enough.
So we parted company. And that's fine.
Yeah. So you've had over your time in the marine industry, you've done a lot of work with associations and clubs and all those wonderful things. And that's how we know each other, through ICOMIA. I know that's taken a lot of your time over and above working full time. How have you managed that? How is and why? Why did you put your hand up and say, okay, I'm going to, and what was your first one that you did?
Well, the story is that I was brought up to try and put back in what you can. I've had a very good life out of the marine industry. And so my first effort really was British Marine Federation. So I was in the Marine Trades Association, which is a subset. And I was happily plodding along as a committee member. And eventually it was suggested I apply to be the chairman of that. So I did that and then sat at British Marine Federation Council. Then I was elected to management board of council purely because I was a nuisance. And then I guess I became president eventually.
Yeah. And so from there?
Well, at that time, I also, when I was president of the British Marine Federation, I sat on ICOMIA's, what was then called the executive committee, that's now called the board. And from there, became a vice president, then a president.
How long were you, because in those days, because these days it's only 2 years for president, isn't it?
I did 3.
You did 3.
Mm-hmm. Likewise with British Marine Federation, we only do 2 and I did 3.
Yeah. How did you do that, Peter?
Well, it wasn't my fault on that occasion. The British Marine bit was my successor came along and then promptly went bust a week after he'd been appointed in his own business. And so he called me and said, would I step in for a couple of weeks for him?
Yeah.
And I did another year.
There you go. And then you were with ICOMIA for a very long time. So you've done presidency at ICOMIA. For those of you listening that don't know what ICOMIA is, it's the International Congress of Marine Industry Associations. So it's like the international body over all the MIAs, BIAs and so on in the world. Did you step into honorary treasury from presidency? How did that happen?
Well, not quite. So when my time was expiring at 2 years as president, the then Secretary General was retiring and a new one was to be appointed. And the board decided I should stay on for continuity purposes. So I did that. What else can I say, really?
Yeah, for the fun of it.
So I think I was 8 years on ICOMIA Executive Committee and 3 years as a president. But unfortunately, before I became president, the then president was Lorenzo Selva from Italy, who was a terrific chap. He was terribly ill with cancer.
Oh.
So I had a year and a half of really standing in for him as a stand-in president.
And okay, let's come up with a fun one here. Which has been one of your favourite locations for the ICOMIA Congress or conference, and why?
Well, if the podcast is going out in Australia, I'll say Australia.
Podcast goes out all over the world, so there's no bias here.
Well, I think they've all been enjoyable in different ways. I think South Africa was memorable.
It was, wasn't
for
it?
me. Yeah. I've never been to South Africa before. We also took a bit of a holiday and did the safari thing, and I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
But, I've got memories from all over.
Yeah.
Go to Chicago and you end up coming back to the hotel in a bus and we're stopped because there's a naked bicycle ride going past for charity.
That sounds terribly uncomfortable.
That's a heck of a way to round an evening off, having had a nice gala dinner. So... yeah, I've got very, very good, strong memories of everywhere we've been. I remember in Sweden, we had to go in a boat somewhere for dinner. And the weather was not good and the boat wasn't very good. And most people were very uncomfortable and certainly not well. And a lot of people got quite wet.
And they shouldn't really have done that because it was a whole bunch of people from the boating industry.
No, definitely a bad move. There we go. That's You've got to take the rough with the smooth.
You got to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah.
Talking of which, have you had a really scary moment boating?
You want to talk about losing a mast in the Bay of Biscay?
Oh, let's do it.
No, we're not going to talk about it.
No?
That's off limits. Not good. Pretty scary.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that is scary.
Mhm.
Yeah, losing mast is... Yeah, we spoke to Lisa Blair, and she lost her mast when she was doing her trip around the Antarctic, her record around the Antarctic, and she lost it at the very bottom. It was very, very nasty. That is, of course, on her podcast interview,
Never good.
so worth listening to. Yeah. What's your favourite memory of boating? What's a moment that you really stick in your mind and think, I'll always remember that because it was just that special?
I think probably my last classic yacht was definitely a real favourite of mine. So I've done a few classic yachts where I find them as wrecks and then restore them fully. And the last one was a classic 8-metre cruiser racer built in 1965, pure mahogany.
Ooh.
Dreadful state it was in. Restored it fully. I was very proud of it. And I've only just recently reluctantly sold it.
And how many boats do you think you've had over your lifetime?
Oh, dear. I don't think that can be public knowledge. I'm sorry. It's off limits.
It's off limits as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I have a friend who constantly says, "And how many have you got now?" And he said, "I'm including your inflatable tenders." And I said, "Well, it's too many." And he said, "You're darn right." So I really need to downsize the fleet a bit. So I've got rid of a yacht.
Okay.
So now with old age, I'm into the dark side.
Dun, dun, dun. You've bought a princess, haven't you?
I have bought an elderly princess. But, I've still got some other boats. I've still got a twin-engine rib if I want to muck about. And I have to say the grandchildren really enjoy it. So that's fine by me. I think the latest addition is an old topper.
Oh, really? I don't mind a topper. I learned how to sail on a topper.
Well, this is for the grandchildren to behave in and learn.
Yeah, they're great because they're, they're very easy to get back up when you capsize them for a start.
Yeah, they're fairly indestructible.
Yeah.
And if you do destroy it, it's not the end of the world to put it back together again.
No, they're great. In fact, it's very hard to destroy them, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, they're really simple boats.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love a topper. Yeah, they bring back great teenage memories for me, toppers.
Right.
So you're also, you were involved with the Royal Thames Club that we're in here today.
Mm-hmm.
You, again, got involved in at committee and flag officer level and all that sort of thing, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I was a flag officer, so I was a rear commodore.
Yes.
The highest a civilian can get in the Royal Thames Yacht Club is vice commodore. The commodore is royalty.
Ah, and that right now is King Charles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. He's just renewed his support of the club.
Yes.
And this club is the oldest continually operating club in the world.
Fantastic. That's so good.
There is another club that claims to be older, but actually it's not continually operating.
Aha.
So this is our hook that we hang the hat on.
Love it. Love it. It's a beautiful club. And you told me a fun story about a little party that happens here for those that have been flag officers. But then there's a tradition with the buttons, isn't there?
Very much so. The Thames has a mess kit with the right buttons and things. When you're a flag officer, you get 3 buttons sewn onto each arm, and that shows to everyone that you're a flag officer. And if there's a dinner, a flag officer burgee is placed on that table. When you retire from that as time served, they take 2 of the buttons off each sleeve off. So you end up with 1 on each sleeve. You are then entitled to go to the one-button dinner annually, which is full of the old has-beens, where no current flag officers are allowed to be present, and one can talk and moan and groan as much as you like. But it's a very nice evening. The club looks after the has-beens remarkably well.
Yeah.
And it goes on a long time each night.
Fantastic. So good. With unlimited boating, access to thousands of boats worldwide, and everything taken care of, our members enjoy boating without the hassle. That's freedom. Freedom Boat Club, North Sydney and Hunter. Call 02 9457 2000 or email us at curious@freedomboatclub.com. So if you were to say to somebody out there, a young person, come into the boating industry, why would you encourage them to come into our industry?
That is a very, very difficult question. I have been extremely fortunate. I'm not sure life is as it was when I was around. To do the practical things, working on your tools and becoming a qualified boat builder, I don't think is overly relevant these days unless you wish to work in wooden boats. And there are various colleges around that teach people of all ages how to build a wooden boat. I think my suggestion to anyone is try and get trained, try and get a skill, be it a trade or management. Don't just turn up and do for the sake of doing. And I think qualifications, education, call it what you like, is crucially important. And then potentially the world is your oyster.
Mm. Well, it certainly is a worldwide wonderful business to be in. We've never had a congress or a conference in an ugly place, have we, Peter?
I don't think so. No, no. I remember we had one in Hamburg and I thought, oh dear, this is going to be dreadfully dreary. Couldn't have been further from the truth.
Yeah.
Delightful. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I sometimes look at people that have become boat people and joined the boat racing circus and the boat racing circuit. And that is great, but I'm not quite sure what happens after that, because you can't keep doing what you think you can. So I would suggest nobody over the age of 40 goes in front of the mast.
Uh-huh.
So if you're a bowman at 40, what do you then do? Great life, but I think you have to get serious at some stage.
But I think there is actually generally an issue in the boating industry as we speak, in that there are a lot of mature people in it, and there don't appear to be a huge amount of young people coming into it. So could those people potentially purchase those businesses that those more mature people own and then get into the boating industry in doing that?
I think that's a nice thought. I'm not sure just to buy it, you're then qualified to do it. I have a pet hate. And then when you say to someone, why are you in this industry? Well, it's my hobby, so I thought it nice. I'd like to go into it.
Yeah.
I didn't go into it as a hobby. I went into it as a business. And I like people to treat this. If you're in the business, it is a business, not just a nice way of life you can drift around with.
Yeah.
It's got to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And it should be no different from any other business. I think also the lack of youngsters coming in is part of an educational problem. I think there is no easy career path in this marine leisure industry. I remember years ago we had something called the Schools Marine Challenge down in the West Country, where the schools at sixth form level were involved in building boats, model boats and things. And we managed to get it into the curriculum of some schools down in the Southwest as a trial. And it was terrific. And I remember the winners at the final competition one year were 6 lads from Helston School. They all went to Pendennis Super Yachts as a job. They're still there as a career.
Wow.
So if you show the way forward, because let's be honest, it's a nice looking industry to go into. But I don't think the door is open as much, and career people aren't aware of it as they probably should be.
Well, yeah, I did a presentation in my high school yesterday, which was a bit scary going back to my high school because that's a long time ago. But I asked the audience, did anyone in the audience, had they even thought about going into the boating industry? And not one of them put their hand up.
No.
Because we don't kind of make people aware of it, and which is part of the point of this podcast, to point out all the incredible different roles that exist in this industry. But yeah, I think we really need to push to schools especially.
It's at school career level, and I don't think the career officers are aware of what's potentially possible. I don't think it's necessary for all of a country. It has to be on the coastal areas or the lake areas and things like that. But when it is explained, there are terrific openings, terrific opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. Otherwise, the industry will die.
Yes, indeed it will. So we can't end on that morbid note, can we?
No, definitely not. And I'm not morbid about it.
Yes.
I'm full of hope that there are ways forward.
Yeah.
And the industry will continue to grow with the right, well-trained people, properly equipped to do a decent job, and understand about customer service and things. I mean, I'm tired of hearing stories about, buying a boat is so expensive to look after it. It's very difficult to get anything done. And some of our industry is appalling at customer relations.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not good at communicating how much something is going to cost before they do it, are they?
Sure.
And that's not everyone. There's some businesses out there that
some
very
are
good
outstanding, and that's
really
why they're successful.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a better focus on customer service.
Yeah.
Because that's, after all, who pays the bills.
Yes, exactly right.
And then a happy customer will stay with you.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, let's discuss the world is changing and the cost of boat ownership is going up. So there's a whole bunch of new ways of boating that are now coming in. So there's boat share, there's boat syndication, kind of the same thing, and there's boat clubs. What are your thoughts on those?
I think they're absolutely terrific. Anything to get people on the water. And I think that people are now cash rich, time poor.
Yeah.
And they want to do lots of different things. And so if they can be exposed to leisure boating, some of it will stick and some of them will go on to say, well, I want to own a boat, and there'll be a pride of ownership. But others will just continue to pick up and play and put it back. And others will try it and then go back to other pastimes. But the industry has to be very clear. We're in competition to all the other leisure activities. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether it's looking at a computer game or climbing a mountain. We are in competition.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure our house is in really good order and make it accessible.
Yeah. So let's go back to you. OBE. How, why, and what was it like going to see the Queen?
Other blokes' efforts. Is the long story. It's relatively easy if you have good people around you. It's like everything in life. So I was very honoured with an OBE, and I was very fortunate. I was honoured at Windsor Castle by Her Majesty the Queen, which is very special.
Yeah, very special.
And you're allowed to take 3 guests. So
who got to go?
I have 1 wife and 2 daughters.
Yay!
Their husbands were left behind. So on memory, one of the daughters flew in from Bahrain for it. But
wow.
Yes, it's absolutely awesome. It is a procedure that is well rehearsed and absolutely stunning. The band is playing, the Gurkhas are guarding the Queen, and I mean, how she does it or did it, I don't know, because when I was up, she said, "Now tell me, how about the London Boat Show? How's it going? It's such an important piece of the calendar." I didn't like to say we were about to dump it.
Oh.
But, so where did she know this from? And she remembered to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
So it was...
That's quite lovely, isn't it?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lots of photographs and stuff. Yeah. So then we came back here to the Royal Thames for a private dinner. 24 of us had a wild, wild evening, which was great celebration. And I'm proud, but I'm humbled by it.
Yeah. And why were you nominated for that OBE?
Well, the nomination is, I'm not supposed to know who nominated. So I didn't know it was happening until I got a letter from the Cabinet Office to say they're minded to offer you an OBE. Sign this if you wish to accept it. So, of course, signed it. But you're sworn to secrecy. You can't tell anybody.
Okay.
And this is like weeks before.
Yeah.
And then the announcement is made in the newspaper. It's a great honor. But so the people, I know some of the people that supported this. I know who started it. I know, yes, I think I do know most of the supporters. And I'm very grateful to them.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about them. So part of it was services to the marine industry in the UK. And the other part was for local community charity. So I was involved with a little girl that died, age 2, brain tumor. And to be honest with you, at the funeral, I just couldn't help myself with the size of the coffin. And so I then set about raising money for children's cancer. And I think we did a reasonable job. Had some fun on the way through. But yeah, it's...
So it was your volunteering time for that and also for the marine industry as well that got that OBE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So we used to raise money. We used to have big balls in Cheltenham. And I always made a point of trying to entertain the people well. So we had big celebrities in and so on and so forth. And each one took a year to organise. But it was great fun.
Yeah.
Raised loads of money. Everyone away happy. So,
win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So out of all of your boats, which has been your favourite?
Oh, definitely Altricia.
Yeah. Which is the one you spoke about earlier, the mahogany one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one before that was called Dilkusha, and it was lovely. And it was very, very pretty. But it was a bit of a pain to live, and it was hard work to sail. The boom was out the back of the boat and everything. It was a tough, wet sail. But yeah, we had fun with it, raced it very well, even though I say so myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any really amazing racing moments that you really remember that were challenging or fun or?
No, not really. They're all fun because that's what I was doing it for. I think I got quite upset with one of my daughters on a starting line one day who said, "Dad, you're too close. This paintwork has cost too much." And I said, "Well, put a fender out if you don't like it." And we were close. I do agree. And then there was another occasion, another daughter. We rounded a mark and she fell off because Dilkusha didn't have any guard wires. Fell off up forward. And I leant over and caught her as we passed her and hoiked her on board.
Kidding.
And said, "Kindly get on board. You're slowing us down."
Oh, my goodness. Your daughters are presumably very resilient, Peter, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think so. I think it was either sink or swim.
Exactly.
I think.
Literally.
Yeah. I'm obviously very proud of them, and I'm proud of their children.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do your grandchildren boat?
Yeah, they'll go on anything. They'll pretend to steer it. But we're now getting to an interesting age. We're now at whatever we are, 7, 9, and 11 or something. I may have got it wrong. So this is where the topper comes in and stuff. But they've helmed the rib a lot. They're not very good on the throttles. But I find it great fun.
Yeah.
They each have their own life jackets, and that's a source of pride for each one. Unfortunately, they keep growing, so we have to keep renewing them. But that, to me, gives me such fun now.
Yeah. Well, it's dedicated time with them, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
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 So
away from their screens and their devices. And
I'm all in favour of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of boating with family.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're racing, there's no phones.
Yes.
Operating at all.
Yeah. And that is, it's kind of a form of meditation in a way, isn't it, sailing? Because you have to be entirely focused, especially racing. You have to be entirely focused on what you're doing.
I'm not sure I'd call it meditation. I'd call it on sheer aggressive concentration.
But it takes your brain away from all worries at work and all those sorts of things, doesn't it?
You haven't got time to think about anything else. You may have all the biggest problems in the world, but if you're racing, that's it.
Yeah.
The blinkers are on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your greatest achievement in racing?
Winning.
Yeah, but which one? You've done so many. You've won so many you can't recall. Is that what it is?
You're trying to put words in my mouth, which is very, very naughty of you. Yes.
That's fantastic. So, Peter, what would you tell the world you've enjoyed most about your career?
Well, I think the industry has been very good to me. I'm still married, brought up 2 lovely girls. They're now married and getting on with it. And I think being successful in a marine industry, and also I've enjoyed trying to put a little bit back in by working with British Marine Federation and ICOMIA. Not much more I can say, really.
So you've enjoyed it all?
Pretty much, mostly, yeah. But everything in life, you have some ups and downs.
Of course.
But yeah, it's been I don't want to use the word, it's been a great life, because I'm not ready to quit yet.
No.
But yeah, I've been so fortunate. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't planned. It sort of happened.
Well, it wasn't planned, but I mean, if you don't, and we discussed this at the school presentation yesterday, if you don't ask for the opportunity, it doesn't happen, does it? So, you going to America and saying to them, this really isn't working and I'm gonna, move on. If you hadn't done that, if you hadn't said that, and then had the good ideas that they then asked you, well, what do you think should happen? And you then came up with those ideas and told them what you thought. If you hadn't done that, that 40-year career wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, but there's a degree of, if I'm polite about it, confidence. One could say it's slightly arrogant.
Yeah.
To say, I would suggest you do it this way, that way. And on that occasion, it worked out okay.
Yeah.
But it could have gone the other way.
It could have gone completely the other way.
Mind your own business and clear off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, I'm not finished yet, but it's been fantastic, the ride so far.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky.
So what items have you still got on your bucket list, Peter?
I'm not really sure. I haven't worked it out yet. I'm just very newly retired from ICOMIA. I will find something to fill a gap, not as much as what I've been doing. I'm going to do a bit more boating. Generally get my health sorted out.
Mm. Yeah, because you've had a bit of challenge there lately, haven't you?
Yeah. So, just a temporary setback, you understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm guaranteeing that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
yeah.
Yes, we want Peter to be around for a very long time.
Well, yeah. Yes.
Mm.
So I'm going to get more involved here at the Royal Thames probably, and various other bits and pieces. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's I've never done this before, and I've never really had to go through the process of my life.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, when you do that?
To some people it might be, but I'm sure it's pretty ordinary otherwise.
Would you have changed anything?
No, but I could have been a bit wiser with the money I've earned.
Fair enough. Too many Range Rovers.
Well, no, before that, sort of. I should have put, when I've earned big money, I should have put it into houses and not sort of frittered it away. Yeah. But I was always worried about school fees and real insecurity, which self-employed people can have.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I wouldn't change it. No.
Yeah.
No. Should I have become a lawyer or an accountant? Yes, but I didn't. So I can't do that.
Yeah.
So, no good looking back.
Yeah.
So, I should probably do a bit more in the commercial shipping world, the big ship stuff.
Yeah.
Which I did enjoy. But I need to find another avenue for that.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing Ministry of Defence contracts and things like that. It's a long, hard gestation period, 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
When you get the contract, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it's set for a number of years.
Yeah.
So I might do a bit more of that.
Yeah.
But it's all new still.
So you went from, really big boats to ski boats. Yeah. Like really big boats.
Latterly, it's been big stuff like aircraft carriers and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How is it working with things like that?
I was just a supplier of equipment.
Mm.
It took me 3 years to get a contract for the aircraft carriers in the UK.
Mm.
But that's it. We've got the contract. It's ongoing. I mean, we delivered lorry loads of stuff for each aircraft carrier. So now we've got support frigates and things like that. But I have sold that business. So.
So when was that business?
Hmm?
When did that business operate? That was from when to when?
Well, funny enough, I can't quite remember when it started. I knew these people and they approached me and said, we'd like your opinion about distribution in the UK. So I said, sure. Gave them my tuppence worth. And they turned around and said, well, we think we'd like you to do it. And I went, I'm fairly committed. But actually I had a lad in the office who was just out of school that was not really overly employed. And I said, well, we'll give it a whirl, give it to him. And I found it very enjoyable and all the rest of it and stuff. So, made a great success of it.
And that was from when to when?
I must have sold the business. No, I sold the business 5 years ago. And I must have done it for, 18, 19, 20 years.
So that was alongside Correct Craft as well?
Yeah, because I was self-employed.
Wow. You've been a busy boy, haven't you?
Got to keep moving.
So you've done Correct Craft alongside that business, alongside Royal Thames, alongside Icomia, alongside a successful marriage and 2 children.
Well, I call it successful marriage. Others may not. But it's survived for 50 years, so...
Lilius, it looks.
Maybe it's all right.
Lilius is wonderful, so you're a lucky man.
But you know, if you want something done, you ask a busy person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are those people in the world that like to be busy and like to achieve, and perhaps I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it must be dreadful to do a 9-to-5 job. You drag yourself out of bed, you go to some office or something, and you do a job that you don't really enjoy. You get no satisfaction out. Then you go home at 5 o'clock or whatever, and you repeat. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's not in me. But fortunately, there are a lot of people that do. But if you ask them about job satisfaction, not so much.
Yeah, we discussed that again at the presentation last night. We talked about, you've got to do something that aligns with your values. And if you start doing something when you leave school and you suddenly realize that it doesn't align with your values, then quit it then and start something completely different.
Yeah, I think there's no disgrace in saying, no, this isn't for me. I want to go this different route.
Yeah.
And give it a try.
Yeah. Because, otherwise you then get to the family stage and the house owning stage and you're kind of stuck there aren't you?
You're locked in.
Yeah.
And you've got to continue the misery.
Yes. Whereas if you change it early.
Yeah. Change early when you're young. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can really do what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And people who never made a mistake in life never did anything. So do it early, then get on with it.
Good line. People who never made a mistake in life never did anything. Good one. Thank you, Peter Methven. I really appreciate your time. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Boat Princess.
And we will see you on the water soon. We know you enjoy the podcast. If you'd like to really get involved with us, then sign up for my newsletter on theboatprincess.com. We hold events, we have special things going on, and you won't get to hear about those unless you've signed up for the newsletter. So that's theboatprincess.com. Have you followed me on LinkedIn as Nicky Vaux, the Boat Princess? I'll be posting details on what's going on in the boating industry, and you can also connect with me if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast and share your business story.